Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, Vietnam Dong. There's a lot of chatter about it. I hear it all the time. People swear up and down they know something about it and it's going to pop off. I said, look, we see what's going on with currencies around the world. Just like all the other currencies, the US dollar is smashing this currency down as well. But there is an interesting article that covers what's going on with the Vietnam Dong. At least can give you some type of idea of what's going to happen here in the near future. So let's cover that so you can feel good at least about your investment. Before we get started, do me a favor though and hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, check out our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. This article right now covers some interesting things about the Vietnam Dong in the past and the future and where it's going. I thought you guys might want to hear about it. It says the Vietnamese Dong forecast. The VND struggles to find floor against a rampaging US dollar despite the SBV's stability vow. It says, like other emerging market currencies, the Vietnam Dong has fallen in value against the US dollar this year as the dollar has rallied to a 20-year high. The VND USD exchange rate was at a low of 0.00004190 on September 30th. A trade surplus and moves by the State Bank of Vietnam have supported the Dong against other currencies such as the euro, which is facing its own pressures stemming from the Russia-Ukraine conflict and an economic slowdown, which drives the value of the Vietnamese Dong. And what is the outlook for the currency's future, which is a good question. So in this article, we're going to look at recent exchange rate trends and some of the Vietnamese Dong's predictions from analysts. So what affects the Vietnamese Dong's value? Well, we know for the most part, because I covered this several times. Vietnamese Dong was introduced in North Vietnam in 1946 to replace the French. The Vietnamese Dong was introduced in North Vietnam in 1946 to replace the French Indo-Chinese piastre and became the South Vietnam's currency in 1953. The two versions were unified when the country became one in 1978. The Dong was revalued in September 1985 at a rate of 10 of the old Dong for one new one. The State Bank of Vietnam sets the reference rate for the value of the Dong against the US dollar. The Dong has been devalued 5 times since 2014 with the aim of boosting exports and ensuring currency stability to control high inflation. This is what I was talking about. Remember, they're manipulating the currency just so they can increase their exports. The value of the currency is influenced by Vietnam's trade flows, foreign currency reserves, economic growth, interest rates, and inflation, as well as the U.S. monetary policy. The value of the U.S. dollar has soared in 2022 in response to the Federal Reserve's rapidly hiking interest rates in an effort to tame record inflation. That has weakened most their currencies against the dollar and prompted other central banks to raise their rates to limit interest rate differentials. Higher interest rate tends to attract capital from investors looking for higher returns on their money, resulting in outflows from countries with comparatively low interest rates. The VND not immune to dollar strength. The value of the Vietnamese Dong against the US dollar gradually declined from the 2014 devaluation when it was trading around 21,000 Vietnam Dong per dollar, and it increased up to 23,600 in March of 2020 as investors sought the safe haven of the US dollar at the start of the RONA pandemic. Now here's the thing, if you look at this chart, you can see the value of the Vietnam Dong. Remember we were talking about how it was gaining on the US dollar, it was starting to strengthen. You can see right here, this around, what is this, I'd say about June of 2021, you could see how the chart is going down. This is the direction you definitely want to go into right here. That means less Vietnam Dong per US dollar. That's the right direction. It was heading in there, and I remember doing articles about this. saying that the Vietnamese dong was gaining on the US dollar, but it was nothing to write home to mom about, not yet. But then since then, look at this. It went from you getting 22,600 Vietnamese dong for every $1 up to now 23,900 Vietnamese dong. That's the wrong direction. Said the USD VND exchange rate then declined to 23,080 at the end of 2020 and reached 22,645 by November 2021. But the dollar's rally in 2022 lifted a pair to a record high in September, reaching 23,513 Vietnamese dong for every $1 the last day of the month. The SBV has been selling large amounts of US dollars from its foreign exchange reserves and has withdrawn trains of dong through open market operations to maintain banking system liquidity and indirectly increase interbank interest rates. Following SBV's net withdrawal, the overnight interbank interest rate rose by 40 basis points to 40.9% last week. On September 22nd, the SBV also raised interest rates for the first time in 11 years. 11 years, can you imagine that? Increasing the refinancing, overnight lending, and SBV loan rates by 100 basis points to return them to March 2020 levels. This move came after the Fed raised interest rates by another 75 basis points, prompting a number of central banks to also raise rates last week. Analysts had expected the SBV to increase rates, but 100 basis points was higher than previous hikes and higher than other countries in the Southeast Asia. Unlike other countries attempted to bring down double-digit increases in inflation, Vietnam's consumer price index increased by 3.94% in September, indicating that the interest rate hikes are intended to maintain the exchange rate stability. It says the weakness of the Vietnamese currency is a reflection of the strength of the US dollar. As the dong has strengthened against the euro, the British pound sterling, the Australian dollar, and Japanese yen, as those currencies face greater macroeconomic challenges. A strong trade surplus has supported the dong against the euro, with the exchange rate declining to now it's 23,000 Vietnamese dong for every €1, and it was at 25,800. And now it's at the start of 2022. You're looking at 2,800 Vietnamese dong difference. So that's the direction we definitely want to go in. The Australian dollar also weakened, now buying 15,500 Vietnamese dong when it was at 16,400 at the start of 2022. The Vietnamese economy has benefited from a shift in manufacturing out of China in response to the U.S.-China trade war in recent years, increasing its exports of electronics, clothing, and furniture. Spoke about that during the time Trump was in office. Analysis by Malaysia-based Maybank expects Vietnam's GDP to grow by 8% in 2022, up from the previous forecast of 6.9%, supported by the retail sales on an improved labor market and the return of tourism following the RONA lockdowns. The bank's 2023 GDP forecast was downgraded to 6% from 6.4%, based on the rising probability of U.S. recession that could reduce U.S. demands on Vietnamese goods. So what is a realistic Vietnamese dong forecast for the future? How do analysts expect the USD/VND exchange rate to perform in the context of ongoing foreign exchange market volatility? Let's see what their projection is. Analysts at Japanese financial services from Mizuho expects the US dollar to remain strong against emerging market currencies. Mizuho's Vietnamese dong forecast for 2022 indicates that the USD versus VND pair could trade at 23,300 as high as 24,200 range during the fourth quarter and end the year at 23,700, which is right somewhere in the middle. The pair could then retreat from the peak of above 24,000 to trade at 23,600 by the end of the first quarter of 2023, 23,500 by the end of the second quarter, 23,400 by the end of the third quarter, and 23,300 by the end of next year. So what do those numbers mean? Well, for every $1 US, you get 23,300 Vietnamese dong. It's going down but not as fast and as much as you would like it to, according to this forecast. Strong growth and contained inflation enables regional outperformance, but does not imply immunity from a strong U.S. dollar trends, especially as the CNY and KRW rumble pressures for now, the analysis wrote in a reference to the Vietnam dong. Now this is banking on the U.S. dollar staying strong instead of getting weak, which most likely it's going to get weaker. Analysts at Maybank noted at the end of August that the U.S. dollar strength has persisted for a tad longer than expected. So they are expecting it to crash, obviously. While the Vietnam dong support from trade surplus may not be entirely relied on given weakening external demand, we like to remain constructive on the Vietnamese dong based on its strong economic outlook that can continue to sustain inflows, portfolio direct investments. At the time of writing this article, which was September 30th, the Vietnamese dong forecast from a data aggregator was Trading Economics indicated that the US dollar / Vietnamese dong pair could rise to 24,005 Vietnamese dong in 1 year from 23,775 at the end of quarter 3 of 2022 based on a global macro model projection and analysis expectation. Seems to me like the US dollar does not want to give up its top position. So the Vietnamese dong forecasted against the euro from Trading Economics indicated that the euro / Vietnam dong pair could move down to 22,011 in 1 year from 22,714. The forecast for 2025 from algorithm-based forecasting services, Wallet Investor, was bearish on the outlook for the euro against the Vietnamese currency, predicting that the exchange rate would fall from 22,619 to 21,616 at the end of 2022. So sure, Vietnam, their currency is gaining on other countries, but just like so many other countries, they're having a hard time fighting the strength of the US dollar. I find it hard to believe that the US dollar is truly that strong. I really do. So you can see the forecast for the Vietnam dong. They have it at best at 23,300 Vietnam dong for every 1 US dollar by the end of next year. Now, keep in mind, this is not taking into consideration the crash of the US dollar or economy, which then changes everything. But that's where they have it for now, based on the current strength of the dollar. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. You guys just keep your head up and hang tight. Eventually, things will be more on the level playing field as all this stuff pans out. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments, and I look forward to hearing from you. That's it for now. I'm out.